Hello, everyone. I'm Mika, your company man VTuber, who with his head in the clouds since I'm always flying planes. Today we are actually flying planes. Oh boy, we are out. Thanks, tank. Out. Thanks, tank. So minus some scuff, we are playing Falcon BMS version 4.37. This is the you can hear the UI sounds. I think some of the game is going to be a little loud, so we'll have to figure that out as we go. But 4.37 is quite big. Main changes that it has is yeah, I got an update. It was released either last night or this morning, I think. But the big changes are VR support, so you can use a VR headset in it. And then there is a new UI, so you'll notice here that our UI is actually scaled to our screen. We've got some black bars on either side, but I am not using that hackneyed switching of the capture that I was using before, so that this is extraordinarily nice for me. There's no more forgetting to swap from one, no more forgetting to toggle one thing off and on again, which like never worked right at all. And then the last thing that has changed is ECM is no longer a magical bubble that just works. It is something we are going to have to think about. But since there's a whole bunch of people who are possibly getting into BMS for the first time because it is a very cheap sim, or they might be converting from DCS to BMS just to try it out because it's quite a lightweight game to run, considering it came out in 1998. We're going to run through the ground ops, takeoff, and landing first. We're going to commit for this. The funniest thing when trying to deal with new people in BMS is finding the easiest way to find out that they have not done this tutorial or have not read the manual is they will pop into this and they'll hit take off and they'll go, why am I in an F5? Because the training mission is down here. The rest of these are bar cap missions that are going to be flown. So our training mission is here. We click it, we slot in. Then we always comm plan, IFF plan, save. We may not actually need to do that. You can't read, so that's discriminatory. If you can't read, how are you typing? Got him. But we always do the data cartridge just because it is a nice little extra thing to get into, because if you forget your comm plan at some point, you're going to be in a world of pain. And actually, I bet our EWS has one is chaff, flare is, yeah, our EWS has reset, which is going to be big pain. I'll fix that later, and I'll go into that later. Then we're going to take off. We'll do ramp start, and we'll go through the ramp start. And I'm not going to do the quote-unquote right start. I'm going to do the start that I like to do, because there is the very specific right way if you want to be all super piloty about it, but then there's also the easier way, which I much prefer. So we're going to close the canopy. We're going to hit Alt and C, release, and then hit P to hide our pilot legs. There's nothing above us, so we are going to arm our seat. And that is now a right click instead of a left click. So I can't trigger it on accident. Actually, oh no, it's up and down. So that's a weird change. So now that we're in the cockpit, first thing we're going to do is main power on. We are going to go over here, air source normal. This is our cooling air source for our systems and our engine. If that is off, we burst into flames, and that is very bad. Then we're going to come over here, We're going to probe heat on, fuel source normal. If we do not turn on the fuel source, our fuel is gravity fed and it will cut out if we do negative G's. Next is IFF. We're setting that to norm. Then lights, switch that to norm. Flash, wingtail, and fuselage lights are all on bright. You will engine to start 2. So engine, we always do start 2 because there's 2 bottles basically to start the engine with. Start 1 uses one of them, start 2 uses both of them. Start 2 has a much higher chance of starting. We're going to keep an eye on our RPM gauge here. Once it hits 20% RPM, we're going to throttle to idle, start using fuel in our engine to get it started. %. All right. So we're going to hit the little banana, and our throttle is now at idle. From there, we're going to watch the RPM and FTIT gauge. FTIT is the temperature gauge for our engine. If that exceeds 750 during a start, we got to go back, hit the banana, cut off the throttle, cut off fuel flow to the engine so that we don't burn our engine up, and we can try again. And once we get past this, I'll explain how we can retry that if we need to. Also, something new I'm realizing is there is runway 36, taxiway P, parking spot 1. So I'm going to assume that our maps now have designated parking space information, so we actually know where the heck we are, which is going to make taxiing way easier. Although since we are on Kusan, it's not really that big of a deal, because I know this airport pretty well. All right, we've now got avionics power, so we got to power up our systems. So we're going to do MMC, stores, multifunction display, upper front console, map switch does not do anything. That's from really old versions. GPS and data link. Then EGI, which is our inertial navigation system, we're going to turn on to normal. We're going to turn on our left hardpoint, right hardpoint, fire control radar, radar altimeter. We're going to put right into operating. Instrument panel lights on. Then over here, we're going to do the FLCS reset. We do stored headings. Stored headings is just done by normal. So this will hit 1.5 and it'll hit ready and we'll be all aligned and it'll be pretty fast. So we did FLCS bit reset. Next, we are going to turn our comms to upper front console here. We're going to turn our comms onto both. COM 1 volume, COM 2 volume. I'm going to just turn down the missile and threat volume because I think they're a bit too loud. ILS we're going to turn on in case we want it. TACAN, we cannot do anything with that. ECM on. This aircraft does not have ECM, so this doesn't do anything. Seal the canopy. Now, normally it'll say, normally the tutorials and other guides will tell you to close the canopy and seal it. I don't like to seal the canopy right after closing it and right before an engine start, because if your canopy is still sealing while you try the engine start, you will get a start failure, and that's a pain. And there's no reason you can't seal your canopy later. You can leave your canopy open during the entire engine start if you want. It's just a step that saves me a bunch of hassle. Next, we got to power up our countermeasures and radar warning receiver. So RWR power, missile warning system, and RWR switches. Then chaff and flare. We don't have countermeasure 1 and 2 loaded on this. Switch the mode into manual. Turn on your HMCS, which is this symbology intensity. Make sure our stores config is in Cat 1. Turn on our lights to taxi. Parking brake on. And then RWR, we have to hand it off. We're handing off the RWR to the system so that it can give us alerts properly. And then we'll go to our data cartridge, load. While that's happening, we'll go to the test page and we'll clear all of these errors we got during startup. We'll see our master caution goes off. Our lights down here went off. One of them stayed on for a little bit. That was IFF. IFF will throw up a warning until your data cartridge is loaded. our INS is now aligned and ready. We are working a little slow since I'm explaining this, but next we're going to go in. Well, since our INS is aligned, we're going to switch it into nav mode before we can forget it. We're going to turn on our HUD, and we're going to go to the list page. We're going to hit 0 for miscellaneous, then RCL for the HMCS, sequence to get us to the next page for HMCS alignment. And what we're going to do is we're going to fix the fact that the HMCS right now is displaying stuff in our vision right here, which it really shouldn't be doing because there is cockpit blanking. So we are going to hit 0, brings up this. We aim the cross on the cross and we hold down cursor enable. Why is my cursor enable not working? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Keybind issues. This worked when I did it before. Uh-oh. You're gonna have to bear with me because I did try to pretty much rapid fire fix all of my controls for BMS today. So let me pull up the alternate launcher.
Caution.
Hey, Lemachet, thank you for the follow. We are running into a quick key mapping issue. This is cursor enable. It should also be insert. So I don't know why this isn't working right now. I did test this just before stream. But this should be insert. Okay, so it's something on my hardware end. But it aligned okay. We can hit sequence and that brings up wind data. We don't have any wind data. Next we will hit T and tell the ground crew to remove the EPU ground safety pin. In BMS, the EPU is simulated. So if you're if you have there's like a certain scenario during engine start that will cause the EPU to turn on if you do not disable it from turning on. And normally this switch guard does it. But as you can see, we flip it to on, it doesn't turn on. It turns on automatically if there is an emergency, like the engine is off. But there's a ground safety pin that stops it from spewing out deadly hydrazine and injuring the ground crew. So we're gonna ask the ground crew to remove that. We're gonna ask the ground crew to remove the chocks. You're gonna get on UHF2, which by default in most BMS setups is your ground frequency. I'm gonna hit nose wheel steering. Uh-oh. Keybind issues up the wazoo. Why is that not working? We may have to do a restart because this is weird. Why is all of my stuff suddenly not working? This is the danger of trying to jump right into this. All of our axes work. Zoom axis works. Throttle axis works. Brakes work. Okay, give me a minute. We're gonna try this out again. And I tested everything and it worked fine. I don't know why that is weird. Cursor enable works, that all works. Let's hope it's just a fluke. Ground ops commit. This time we can go in, take off, hit the taxiway start, and we'll start from right where we were. We got a block 40 showing here, right, with the warhead and the no IFF antennas up here. Oh, the AOA sensor is weird. It's like not there. Unless it's an AOA sensor on the other side and not on this side. All right, nose wheel steering works. Let's try miscellaneous, HMCS. That is an odd bug. It all worked fine here now, but our systems are all go. The other thing you're going to do is your fire control radar. It will boot up and it will be in standby. You will go hit this button and it'll say STBY. No, it'll be in this mode when you start up. You'll hit standby, CRM, and it'll be online. And when you start from a taxiway start, your radar altimeter starts off. So you got to turn that back on. I'm going to turn the COM1, COM2 volumes down because typically they're quite loud. And you do a final check just to make sure that everything is good. Don't forget your oxygen, which I think we did skip that step as I was not doing my typical procedure. We're all good. Our parking brake is on, and BMS, one thing is simulated, that is if you throttle up, your parking brake will get turned off automatically according to the F-16 manuals. I'll request a taxi for departure.
Goblin 2, you are number 1 for departure. Taxi, Alpha. And then hold short, runway 36.
Alpha, hold short, runway 36. All right. Now, normally, if you're taxiing in a mission and it's not near your takeoff time, as a big tip, park in one of these areas. Almost every airfield's going to have them. Park in there. You'll be close enough that air traffic control will usually recognize you're ready for takeoff. But if you're like 10 minutes early, you can possibly really screw up some of the takeoff order if you do not do that. We'll approach the line. Step on our brakes, switch to landing lights. We will increment UHF to 3, and we will hit T again, ready for departure.
Goblin 2, hold short.
And we're early, so what we can do is we can request departure again, and it'll override and let us take off before our assigned takeoff time.
Goblin 2, going to sound tower, plane 320 at 6 knots, runway 36. You're cleared for takeoff.
I believe our takeoff speed for an F-16 with a pretty much clean configuration should be about 130 knots. So we're going to line up, hold the brakes, step on the brakes, throttle up full afterburner, wait for RPM to get 90%, release. And I think we are in a block 30. Rotate. Clean config, you really get up to speed quick, so you have to be on that rotate and you have to hit your gear up quite quick and take your throttle off of afterburner. Otherwise, if you hit over 305 kilometers or 305 knots, you can damage your landing gear, and then you get to enjoy the landing with unsafe gear checklist. You'll contact departure. You hit T, and you'll just cycle through the ATC menus until you get to the one you want. Report airborne. Fly heading 355.
Departure. Depart heading 355. Resume on navigation.
Air tower will typically give you a heading towards your first waypoint or near your first waypoint. So you can follow that as you take off and as you're climbing, so you don't have to mess with your HSD here. The tutorial is going to, like the actual manual tutorial for this is going to go into a lot greater detail of what you need to do to navigate. I'm just going to fly around. And this is me also making sure all of my stuff actually works. And as a big bonus, if you are using default controls for the most part, not counting anything you set up with your joystick, your numpad controls this set of inputs, as well as this up-down. Or, sorry, it is this up-down. So incrementing is numpad plus, decrementing is numpad minus. The arrow keys are this, so you can hit arrow key up and it'll swap between the two radios and the steer point. This upper panel of buttons is your F1 through F6 keys, so you can just hit F4, and it's quite useful for really quick items since you're going to be using the DED a lot in the aircraft. Or rather, that's the ICP. And I think our afterburner is set right, it seems. I had to reset the afterburner detent, and one way you can tell if you're in afterburner or not is by, at full throttle, your nozzle position should be about 0, but if you hit afterburner, it'll spike up. Just even the tiniest bit of afterburner should do that. That's some fun stuff with exhaust velocities, where your afterburner exhaust velocity is going fast enough that the nozzle position suddenly is inverted. Nozzle physics is inverted. It's quite fun stuff, that fluid dynamics. All right. So next we can do is we can contact approach, and we can request an unrestricted approach. Runway 36, straight in approach. 2984. We just took off. We didn't change it, so we're fine. For landings, what I typically like to do, at least this works with Gunsan, which is pretty much at sea level. I think it's at like 10 feet above sea level. I like to drop down to about 2,000 feet and then fly straight in for the landing approach. That is not what the procedure tends to tell you to do, but I like it for visual approaches. It makes it pretty easy. Should throttle back to drop our speed. I always forget how quick a clean config F-16 can get going. It's very rare you fly a clean config F-16. Contact tower. So we're gonna just decrement our comm ladder. Technically, you can increment it, but this is my habit, and that's what I do. We request landing. I'm gonna drop our speed to 300. We didn't turn hard enough, so we overshot our runway location.
Continuing bound for runway 36. Red board on final.
And when you're starting out, it is best to give yourself as much distance as you can before the runway to line up. You can, if you're going too fast, you can use a little bit of speed brake, but normally you well, you're going to need speed brake anyway for safety. So we're below 300 kilometers an hour, or 300 knots, sorry. Drop our landing gear. We're going to throttle back up to compensate for it. We've got that extra line unmarked. That is a 2.5 degree down pitch line, so we got to put that on the runway. I'm going to put my speed brakes out. Speed brake indicator is right here. If it's this dots, it is out. And if they're closed, it'll tell you it's closed. So then next, we got to put this line right on the end of the runway. Then we got to bring this bracket up to our AOA indicator. Or sorry, not AOA indicator, our flight path marker. PAPI on the left side of the runway, it's that one white and then 3 reds. We generally ignore it, although 1 white and 3 reds is fairly typical for an F-16 approach. You might be 1 white and 3 reds to up to 2 whites and 2 reds, depending on your specific approach. Generally, you don't bother looking at the speed of your aircraft. Just keep the flight path marker near the top of that indexer. Flare just a little bit. Just to about 13 degrees, throttle to idle, and you touch down. We bounced a little bit. We forgot to say on final, so tower is a little angry. We're gonna hold our pitch up at 10 degrees with the aero brake. You can skip this if you want, because in reality that just saves our brakes. You will stop much shorter if you use your brakes from the start, although you're going to have a little bit of a rough time. That matters. That honestly matters a bit more in DCS, where the F-16 is a lot more squirrely on the ground. In BMS, your landing zones are all perfectly flat and smooth, so there's very little ground handling you have to worry about.
Copy 2-1, contact ground, switch to 273-525.
And that wraps up this mission. We'll throw ourselves into a campaign, and we'll try to figure out how the heck the jammer works. Now, so we'll exit, campaign, new.
Despite the odds,
We're gonna skip that. I do not want to hear your. Oh, I forgot to set no videos, so we're gonna have to deal with the videos in the campaign. Ugh, gross. But we will do rolling fire. We're gonna pick that Sosan, Soul, Gunsan's down here. Iron Fortress instead, so that way we can start at Gunsan, so I'm at a familiar airfield. Combat rating, from what everybody says, pick veteran. Why is it loud? So then, in a campaign in Falcon BMS, the dynamic campaign is where everybody says it shines. There is a bit of a legwork. You have to look down to see if you're behind the detent. Yeah, so I think I missed that message earlier, but BMS has an throttle detent set option. So you put your throttle at the detent for afterburner, like just before it, and then you click set detent. And then if you've got a physical detent on your throttle, it's really nice because you know you're at the detent, you're at your afterburner, and you have to exceed that detent. So that's what I do on mine. I also have an idle cutoff detent, but I didn't get that fixed for this. I forgot how I had it set up. I think it's buttons technically in the controller setup. But this is our priorities. We're going to, logistics, we don't really care about that much yet because we are in a shooting war, not a long-term campaign yet. Oh, skip that. I don't care about your videos. Start the campaign, make sure you hit stop so that the timer isn't going. You're going to go to Intel. Everything's moved around, so it's a little awkward for me. Fighter Squadron, not set by HQ. You're going to want to frag your own missions, otherwise they will send you on really dumb things. And I bet we've got some really dumb things, actually. Not so dumb. Got Seed, a Strike, D. That one's a dumb one. That's way behind enemy lines. So the target type set, mission type, we'll do a little bit more reconnaissance, more defensive counter air, not so much close air support, not so many strategic strikes. Offensive counter air, that's taking out enemy airfields, that's important. All right. Oh, actually, we got to go back to that. You can reset that over here. We have to set the packs because it's going to default to a whole bunch of stupid locations. So packs are the areas at which are important. This is generally a little hard to see where they are specifically because of the differences in the map, because there is not much, the indications on this map do not really do not match up with the indications on the actual map. So I go by terrain features. So we've got this little peninsula setting out. That's our front line. That's where we care about things. So we'll set everything there to 5. Right along the front lines. And then everything else is low. Oh. New UI, a little buggy. That is expected. You can leave some of this back line stuff a little higher, but it should be okay. And then if we don't like these flights, why are there so many? I wonder if this had UI sounds before and I'm just not remembering them. So we can delete these. Delete these. Just to clear out our air tasking order. So that way we are fragging every mission we want to run. Because we are in charge of our squadron. And we're in this one, so we can't delete it. All right, actually, let's delete the escort one. Delete. All right, next we want to select air defenses. So just right click on the map, ground units, air defenses, naval units. We can do combat as well. There's not many combat units around. And we'll look at these air defenses. So the setup is going to take a little while just because we have to make sure that everything is done correctly for us to fight at maximum. So this is an enemy SA2. So we're going to add pre-planned threat steer point. Hey, Aaron, how are you? Let me actually get some music playing since we're just sitting here doing stuff. So pre-planned threat steer point, SA2, accept, drag it onto our target, and that will give us a threat circle so we know its range. In reality, its range is going to depend a little bit, but that's its like maximum theoretical range. So recon the next one. Air defense, SA2. Threat steer point, SA2. Plop that down. And we only have to do this for the areas we care about. SA5, okay. Threat steer point, SA5s. I have a little bit of PTSD from dealing with those, so I'm going to go cry myself to sleep. We have to fight that. This one, SA2. My music sounds loud. Everything seems loud these days. Oh wait, I've got it's because my headset is up in volume. Pre-planned threat steer point, SA2. This is all important because this is also going to show up in our data cartridge. All right, so next thing, we're going to frag a mission. Add package, new. We're going to select F-16 CM Block 50 because that's what we are. Here are the 14th Fighter Squadron. So we're going to pick 14th Fighter Squadron veteran. Start at, that's a new option. I haven't seen that before, I don't think. We can lock our takeoff time to ASAP because we want to get in and start taking these SAMs out. So we'll put it to typically 10 minutes before your takeoff. If you know what you're doing is enough time. If you need more time to organize, you can do later. And your ramp start will start you. Your ramp start will typically start you at 20 minutes out, or if you have less than 20 minutes before takeoff time, it'll start you as soon as you can. So we're going to slot into the lead of this deed mission. And from there, we can go to this air tasking order and we can delete, delete, delete. And while we're doing this deed mission, we can do another package. We're going to do a bar cap just to kind of cover us. You're going to set them to bar cap. Okay. Takeoff time is in 8 minutes. So they take off 2 minutes before us. They're going to patrol around here. Add package, new. You can get by without doing this. I like to have escorts because I keep getting my ass handed to me by MiG-29s. Yes, we are back flying over Korea because 4.37 does not have the Israeli theater of operations yet. All right, then for our deed mission, we're here. We can go to our loadout. It's hidden by my microphone, so I got to check it. We could bring harms. I'm not a huge fan of the harms for SA2s because we've got other weapons that work just fine. So we're going to go to the air to ground. We're going to pick the GBU 39 small diameter bombs. Then I'm going to actually unselect myself. No, I got to select myself. Other, we're going to take the sniper targeting pod because I want the sniper targeting pod. We've got the ECM pod. We've got the 2 big tanks, 2 AMRAAMs, and 2 Sidewinders. I believe for the AMRAAMs, yeah, we're getting AM-120Bs because we're not trying to fight things. Our wingman, we are actually going to have him take harms. So you can... the green ones are selected. So if they're all selected, you're changing all of them. If you want to change one person's thing, you unselect everyone but that. So right now we're only editing our wingman's loadout. So that's set. Then we go to data cartridge. We're going to go into electronic warfare suite. So this is where it can get pretty confusing. There is a utility to make this less confusing, but I don't care for it because I can either edit an INI file or I can do it in here. So mode 1, that's what this is saying because we've got mode 1 through 6. So mode 1 is CMS, CMS forward picks our current mode. Mode 1 is typically what I default to. So what I want is I want 3 chaff, so only a burst of 3, burst interval of 0.5 seconds. So it'll fire 1 chaff, wait a half second, fire 1 chaff, wait a second, fire the last one. For flare PGM, burst quantity is 0, sequence quantity 0 because I only want to fire that. For our other mode, CMS left is what I like to set to flares. CMS left fires mode 6. So chaff PGM 0 and 0. Then flare PGM, and I might actually have this wrong, but we'll figure that out as we go. So then flare is 3 burst, 0 sequence, 0.5. So it's going to do the same thing. Just check chaff, and then 5 should be our left wall emergency slap switch if we're shitting ourselves. So 3, no sequence, 0.5. Then flare, no sequence of 0. Burst quantity 3, 0.5. Save that before we can mess anything up. Load our comm plan, load our IFF plan, save. There's another thing we got to do since we're planning to use bombs and we've got a stationary target. So we've got this air defense battalion. First unit is this Fansong F. We're going to go up to steer point, typically 15, because you never have a flight plan that's really more than 14 steer points. You're going to hit accept. And if we open our data cartridge, we should see it's either in the weapon. No, it's not in the weapon targets. It's in target steer points. Target steer point. We've got the coordinates loaded. This is what I wish DCS had. Like just this, you just load targets into your steer points and you're all good. So there's the Fansong, and then we can go SA2, 16, accept, SA2, 17, accept, SA2, 18, accept, SA2, 19, accept, SA2, 20, accept, SA2, 21, accept, CU 23, 22, and accept. We've got 8 bombs. I think we put in 9 targets, so we're all good. And then just out of paranoia, common IFF plan save. You can also edit your harm tables. I never use the harms really in any of the table mattering modes, but you know, this has got some of your defaults. MFDs we might actually want to go into. So in nav mode, MFD 2, that actually looks like it's held over from some of our setting. No, it can't be held over. But it's SMS, HSD, targeting pod, MFD1 is fire control radar, test, and then data cartridge. Air to air, FCR, and MFD2 has the same thing. Air to ground, MFD1 should have the targeting pod. MFD2 should be pad. Where is pad? There it is. Save that. Oh, we probably could have loaded a data cartridge file, but oh well. And then we're going to save our campaign. We will take off and hope I got everything set up right. We'll do a ramp start, because we'll be able to set everything up in time. 10 minutes is more than enough time to start the F-16 if you work quick. All right, close the canopy. Alt C P. Nothing above us. Also, I know where we are. Arm our seat. And I'm probably going to do stuff out of order from what I did, but I'm doing the start that I like to do normally. And this, the difference is that in the other one, I made sure that I told you to turn on this air source before you did your engine start. Because if you're not quick enough on that, like if you hit this and then you're going, where was that air start? And you spend, like 30 seconds trying to find it, you might end up causing an engine problem. But what I do is I go probe heat, Fuel source normal, IFF normal, lights on, main power on, light switches on. You can't hit these unless your main power is in main power. Engine to start 2, air source normal, oxygen on, engine anti-ice auto. Then I've got some time, so I do front console, comms to both, comm 1, comm 2, ILS. Turn down the missile and threat volumes. And we're not even at 20% yet for our gauge. You might notice this RPM gauge is a bit different because we are in a block 50 now, whereas before we were in a trainer block 30, I think it was. %. It's a little banana. And if you really want to, like if you're playing single player, you can just ignore the check of the FTIT gauge. But if you're playing multiplayer, you really want to catch that, because BMS multiplayer missions are typically pretty big organized things. And if you have a hot start and you don't catch it, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have to like slot out, slot back in or something. All right, we got power. So all of these switches on. Generally, I find you don't really need to know what any of these switches do, except for the ST, this SDA, that is your stores management. Sometimes if you've got a store issue, you can go into the SMS and you can select that pylon, and then you can toggle it on and off, and you can get a hung store cleared. You'll probably see that today, as we'll likely end up with a hung store with how many bombs we're going to try to drop. Panel lights on. I did left hard point, right hard point, fire control radar, and radar altimeter. We actually have something on our left and right hard point this time, so that is important. How does this game compare to DCS? So DCS is focusing on a multitude of different aircraft. BMS is primarily focusing on the F-16, and as such, Falcon BMS is generally considered to be the more accurate F-16 simulator. There are some things that are lacking, like I don't know if you were around for it, but I mentioned that our F-16 handles very nicely on the ground in this sim because the ground is like perfectly smooth. And in DCS, it can be quite squirrely. I think DCS takes it in the opposite direction because it's giving you torque from the engine after the engine is at a constant speed, which shouldn't happen because the stator blades in a turbine should cancel most of the torque out. But I can't say that for sure. Pain, Pecco. I really hope that wasn't temperature related, but I got my temperature display up now. Because it was just an abrupt everything turned off, which sounds like a temperature problem. Although I don't think BMS is really that intensive for temperatures. But I'm launching BMS. Can you not hear me? I can see that you can hear me on stream. No sound. What? There totally should be sound. Uh, can you hear me now? Hello? 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 Anything? Uh, uh, uh.